All right, I'll get us started here. Good morning, everybody. My name is Troy. I'm the Library Department Chair. It's good to see all of you in the library today. This semester, well, really this year, we've had an ongoing series of events about pop culture, and we've looked at different aspects of pop culture, and by pop culture, thinking about movies and film, and today, comic books, superheroes, all the different things that are popular that we interact with as we're, binging our lives away. But importantly for us as scholarship, what does that teach us about us? How can we study pop culture, understand pop culture, and use that to learn about ourselves, to learn about the world, and also to make it more engaging as we engage with these things, to make it a little bit more meaningful in different kinds of ways. So to do that, as part of that series, we are excited to welcome Dr. Marc DiPaolo. I'm probably messing up your name, sorry. DiPaolo, sorry.
This is cool.
Marc is a new faculty member, and that's why I'm messing up his name, so I'm sorry, Marc.
No
but it comes to us with a series of publication history, thinking about different superheroes, thinking about what superheroes mean, and really engaging in that scholarship. And so when he was on campus and we started this series, I said to Marc, you really need to come and be in the library and do a talk and connect in with us. So we're very excited to have him here today. I'm very interested to see all of the goodies that he has brought. And also want to give a shout out. We have a really nice graphic novel and manga collection here in the library. So if that's your kind of thing, definitely let us know. We're happy to show that off. So with that, I will turn it over to Marc and just say thank you to all of you for coming. And thank you, Marc, for your time and work on this presentation. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, everybody. I appreciate you all coming. And you can hear me pretty good? The mic's good? Okay, cool. So I assume part of the reason you're here is because you kind of think superheroes are pretty cool, right? Have you ever talked to like friends or relatives who are like, why? Why do you like these guys? Okay. I get that a lot. There's a funny moment when I was working on my PhD in English, and I went to visit my grandma in a nursing home, and she was suffering from dementia, and she was remembering and forgetting the existence of my brother. And I came to visit her with a big stack of comic books because I just came from the comic book store, and I had a big Dunkachino with me. And so she kind of saw me, and she's like, oh, so you're chubby and you're drinking a Dunkachino. And I was like, yeah, sorry. And she's like, and you're getting a PhD and you're studying like Jane Austen and you're still reading Batman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Doctor Strange, Fantastic Four. I was like, yeah. So she's like, why? You should, that's like for kids. And I was like, yeah, I know. I've been asking myself the same question. And in my first job, teaching in the communications department in 2006, I was having lunch with the Dean of Arts and Sciences, one of my new bosses, and I wanted to give a good impression. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I mentioned the concept of, well, Spider-Man is my favorite superhero, or one of my favorites. And she got really confused, and she's like, is it possible to have a favorite superhero? Don't they all just wear pajamas and wrestle? Like, what's the difference between them all? And on some level, when I was growing up, there wasn't a huge difference. Actually, their powers was what differentiated them. I watched Super Friends, and, Aquaman was underwater, Wonder Woman had an invisible plane, and she was a girl, Superman flew. They were all just sort of noble, nice, and didn't have a sense of humor, and because their personalities were kind of blank, you could kind of put yourself in them. And actually, that's sort of how Bella Swan works in Twilight. She's a little blank, and you could kind of imagine yourself dating Edward Cullen. So I think that's what people's vision of superheroes, but actually some of them have very strong personalities, especially when they were first created. Their creators would put themselves in the personalities, and so they're pretty different, and so you can have a favorite. So for example, I don't know if you've noticed, but Wonder Woman and the Punisher are kind of different. Like, the Punisher will kill you if you jaywalk, and Wonder Woman will hug you if you're a mass murderer and recommend her therapist. These are very different people. So, on the one hand, I knew exactly what she was talking about because on some level, yeah, that is all there is to them. It's really fun to play games like, gee, who would win, Superman or the Hulk? Especially since they're in different universes and they don't usually fight, And it's kind of hard to figure out who would beat Superman because he's got so many powers. And that is fun. One of the first comics I read, the Thing gets punched through a supermarket by a villain called Terrax who works for Galactus. I'd never heard of Terrax. He wasn't in any of the cartoons I watched. It was the first comic I ever read. All I knew was I spent all my time in supermarkets with my mom, and I wished the thing would fly through the wall, because how much fun would that be? So I liked the familiarity of the setting, and the battle was cool. Comics can also be really funny, especially Marvel Comics emphasizes humor. And one of the things that was kind of neat in the 80s was She-Hulk was introduced as a character who knew she was in a comic book, and she would complain about the quality of her scripts. And the artist was John Byrne. And whenever he would deliberately give her bad dialogue, and she would turn and look at you, the reader, and she'd say to John Byrne, "What kind of script is this? What are they paying you?" And she'd like rip the comic page and look like she was kind of coming out of it. And that was neat. At first, I didn't like her because I wanted to believe the superhero universe was real, and her knowing it's fake bothered me. But over time, I came to really appreciate how funny she is. And Deadpool stole her act, which is kind of a shame, because I think people underappreciate her TV show, total aside. But superheroes can also reveal a lot about us personally, our society. What do we call heroic? What do we call villainous? A lot of times people will go see a superhero movie and they'll kind of root for the bad guy, particularly if you're talking about Aquaman's brother, the environmentalist, Orm, or Killmonger. You're like, I don't know, these people seem to have a point. Who's the bad guy here? That's interesting to talk about. And you know, whether you pick the Punisher or Wonder Woman might say something about how hard you are on yourself, how hard you are on other people, your view of God, and how you vote. And all these kind of things play into it. But there's the game that's always kind of fun, and you can get very judgmental about this. My friend Pete would say, "Mark, I have very big fears about you because your favorite superheroes are Doctor Who, Spider-Man, and Wonder Woman, and I think you're ill." And I'd be like, that seems kind of mean. And he's like, well, Spider-Man's really withdrawn and judgy, and he keeps screwing up, and he's very self-centered and always wants to be rich. Wonder Woman doesn't get along with men, and the Doctor can't be social at all. He has no people skills. And I said, what's your point? So you can kind of be judgy, but I still think it's a good game. If you were to pick a superpower, does anybody have one you know you'd pick? Like the big two that people start off with is flight and invisibility. Anybody would pick one or the other? Do you have one? Which one? Yeah, I mean, these two are big. Other cool powers? Strength. Shape-shifting, that's Mystique from the X-Men. There's Mr. Incredible. Obviously, that's Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, and Superman. Time travel, mind reader, so that's the Doctor and Professor X. So, what can you learn about yourself or other people who pick these powers? I think you can be sort of cup is half empty or full when you come to interpreting this. So take this with a grain of salt. I looked it up online, which is the place you go for all the answers, right? If you're interested in flight, it speaks to the secret desire to escape from reality, and you want power, but also it does seem kind of fun, so maybe you don't overthink it. Invisibility, truth seekers. I mean, if you're invisible, you could kind of find out everything you need to know, and you can do investigation. You can go into, locked rooms where the government are hiding the aliens, Of course, it could be a sign that you're paranoid or that you're a voyeur and you want to look in people's locker rooms. So, strength, desire for respect, justice, revenge. Shapeshifter, clever and artistic people like to reinvent themselves, or people who have body image issues like myself. Time traveler, perfectionist haunted by regret. Since I like Doctor Who a lot, and I am a control freak, and I did have a lot of regret. Okay, I begin to see where this is working. Mind reader, people pleaser. This is like, oh, I really want to do good on a date. If I could read their mind, then I can do better on the date. Kind of makes sense, right? So some of these can be a little judgy, but it's kind of a fun game, right? Does this work for you? Or you're like, nah, that's just trying to make me feel bad. Who did I relate to? When I was growing up, I really read Spider-Man because he joked around a lot, and I joked around a lot, especially when I was in trouble or with a bully, or I'd try to use humor to get out of it. Also, he was a New Yorker. Also, he had a thing for redheads. So he was a STEM, I was humanities, whatever. It's cool. Nightcrawler, Roman Catholic, German. I'm a quarter German. like chasing around after girls. I was too shy to do that, so I kind of wished I was as cool and forward as he was. And Clark Kent, I was a reporter and shy, and he's a reporter and he pretends to be shy, so I just kept seeing myself in these characters. So how do you make these connections is one of the things this is about. But once you do make a connection, have any of you done this where you're like, this is my character? You can't have this character. And if there's many versions of the character, don't you know the only real one? For example, I own this character, the one true Spider-Man. In 1996, I was in college. I was waiting my whole life for a Spider-Man movie. And my friend came up to me and he's like, guess what? Titanic's a big hit. Leonardo DiCaprio is going to play Spider-Man, and he's going to fight Electro and Sandman. And I was like, no! No, 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 no. Leonardo DiCaprio is way too hot for Spider-Man. He's a nerd who gets powers. He's bullied. He got an egg-shaped head. He doesn't speak. We need somebody Hollywood ugly to play Spider-Man. I personally would cast Tobey Maguire in the part, and Kirsten Dunst should play Mary Jane, and the villain should be the Green Goblin, and they should adapt the story where the Green Goblin throws Spider-Man's girlfriend off a bridge. In the comic, she dies. It's a little depressing. Since this is the first movie, he should catch her, and that should be the end of it. In 2002, I'm sitting in the movie theater like this. I was like, I commissioned this movie from Jesus, and I got exactly what I wanted. It was really nice. And early in all these superhero arcs, I was really good at predicting who they were going to cast, who was going to make the movie. Another time, my friend Pete said, the last Batman movie was a little campy. They're doing a new one. They're trying to make it more serious. I think you're going to be happy who they picked. And I was like, well, it should be sort of crimey and gritty, and I would pick Christopher Nolan myself. And he's like, yeah, you're going to be pretty happy with the news. And so, what do you know? So I was good at that. The other big one was, what are the comic books I like to read for years, in the 90s in particular? I loved Black Panther. This is the coolest comic. It was funny because it was told from the point of view of a dumb racist white guy who worked for the US government, and he was in awe of Black Panther, so it was sort of a comedy. He winds up in the movies, actually. He's the colonizer. So he's the narrator. And I liked this comic, and I was like, gee, they should make a Black Panther movie. It's too bad they never will. I also really liked the Infinity Gauntlet with Thanos, and I was like, they should totally make a movie out of this. It's too bad they never will. Also, I really liked the story Civil War. It's too bad they'll never make that. And then they announced the slate of movies, and I was like, I'm getting good at this. This is pretty cool. But they're never going to do Moon Knight. I mean, let's be serious. I still don't understand Ant-Man. Ooh, I have an alarm. Sorry about that. So, the other thing is, have you ever noticed anytime they announce a new person to play the Joker or Batman, everybody's like, no, not them. It can't be Edward Cullen. It can't be Ben Affleck. It can't be Michael Keaton. They're always unhappy. They're like, the guy from 10 Things I Hate About You is the Joker? No, there's no way he's going to be any good at all. And I don't know, he kind of wound up being not too bad, right? So fans, in my experience, are wrong all the time, but they love being angry a year in advance. And I'm also sort of like, why don't you wait for the movie to come out before you start breaking things in your mom's basement? Like, just calm down a second. Also, kind of all these are legit Batmen. They're just a little different. There's the cool 60s Batman who's kind of liberal, likes sex, has a sports car, Batmobile. He's fun. The colors are bold. Then you've got, as it goes closer to the present, you can see society's getting a little crankier because the color starts to go away. He starts to get more angry. It turns from a sports car to an armored sports car to a very armored sport to a tank with 400 mounted cannons and machine guns, and you kind of can't go any further. Like, it's ridiculous. And now they started to go a little more back to a sports car, and I was like, ooh, I hope that's a good sign for society. I don't know. But he certainly couldn't mount any more guns on that car. There was no room. So I like all these Batmen. Of course, I've got my preferences, but... And then there was the people I wish I was like. When I first saw the Luke Cage TV show, I had never read the comic, and I went back to it, and I was like, this guy, is so cool. I will never be that cool, but I wish I, so it was more like this. And there was no way I could become like him. Wonder Woman I like because I was very angry at certain periods of my life, and she's open. Like, I was afraid of people, and she's like, no, they're hurting. And I was like, wow, Wonder Woman, you actually trust people, and you actually believe people can change for the better? I will myself to be more like Wonder Woman. And I actually did, and I got less cranky, and my blood pressure went down. So thank you, Wonder Woman. She also looked like my mom. Not exactly. My mom doesn't dress like that. But Linda Carter is part Mexican. My mom's Italian. They both had curvy figures and black hair. And so I'm a kid. I thought my mom was punching Nazis. And that was kind of neat. So which supervillain are you? If I were a supervillain, I'd be the Riddler. I just know it. I feel it. I've taken the personality test. I've got the confirmation. But I kind of sensed it in advance. I feel very Riddler-y most of the time. But how do you choose who you relate to? How do you pick your favorite superhero if you're going to do it? Some people will pick on the basis of race. Hey, I see myself on TV. I see myself on the big screen. I thought it was pretty cool watching Shang-Chi on the big screen. I was like, wow, cool Asian superhero. This is awesome, you know? Okoye. Or ethnicity. Colossus is one of the only Russian atheist artists I can think of who's a superhero. He's an interesting dude. I was looking for Italians, and I got the Punisher. I forced myself to like him for a while, but at a certain point I was like, especially when some really weird people in real life started to like him. I was like, oh, no. Can we have a second Italian character? And then they revealed that Catwoman was half black, half Italian. And I was like, of course, the circumstance under why she's half Italian, not great. But still, better than the Punisher. Gender identity. It's hard to be more macho than Batman. The Master on Doctor Who can swap back and forth between male and female, just like the Doctor, and that's kind of neat. And Wasp in the comics, not the movie so much, no one is more classically feminine than the Wasp. She's like a Sex and the City character who wandered into a superhero comic. She's like, darling, I've decided to go shopping, Saks Fifth Avenue, will you come with me? And then afterwards we'll have Manhattans. And I'm reading this as in 5th grade going, I like her. That's awesome. And then they did not do that personality for the Wasp in the movies, and that's the one I'm angry about. I'm like, where's the Sex and the City Wasp? They made her kind of insane from spending too much time in the little zone. Anyway. Religion. I was Catholic. Daredevil was Catholic. Yay. Muslim. It's a big deal when Kamala Khan came out. Pakistani, New Jersey superhero. She's really relatable. And when I watch her show, her family seems like my family. I can relate. I was like, I think I joke that her show is the best portrayal I've ever seen of an Italian family. And she's not. But it doesn't matter, because I can relate. Occupation. I have friends who like Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, because they're in the military, or their relatives are in the military. I know teachers who like Spider-Man because at one point he was a high school chemistry teacher. He was also a photojournalist. So jobs. Remember our book for the year, Disability Visibility? Some superheroes have disabilities. Iron Man has a heart condition, an artificial heart. Daredevil is blind. And at one point, Batgirl, who was a famous superhero for many years, is shot and crippled by the Joker. And she is in a wheelchair, but she redesigns herself and rediscovers herself as Oracle, and she's this information database for all superheroes. And she was really cool as both Batgirl and Oracle. Also, who would you like to date? That's kind of a fun one. I like watching the Poison Ivy Harley Quinn relationship. A lot of people, I'm told, are attracted to Gambit. I find him too much like Nightcrawler. It's kind of like Elmo is too much like Grover. That bothers me. And I wanted to date her. That's Kitty Pryde from the X-Men, aka Shadowcat. I had a crush on her when I was a teenager. She was this kind of nice suburban, she's from Illinois, suburbs. and a Jewish computer geek, kind of angry, and she's famous for saying, "Professor Xavier's a jerk." And I liked her so much, I got a bust of hers, and it's still in my office when you come visit me. She's got a pet purple dragon, and frankly, I still have a crush on her, but what are you going to do? And if you were to read the letters pages in the Excalibur and X-Men comic books in the 80s, every issue, a fan wrote a love letter to Shadowcat, like every one. And I would read them, and I'd be like, I'm not insane. This is great. Or maybe I am. Maybe we're all nuts. It was kind of fun. Now, I want to play you Dave Chappelle weighing in on all the very things I've been talking about. I guess there may be some fair use issues, and it's only a couple of minutes, but we'll see if I can get away with it. Where is he? No. Okay, here we go. Dave Chappelle.
No, I was never a normal kid. I hated comic books growing up. You know, I just think I didn't believe in the whole idea of a superhero. You know, who look at superheroes? They're bad role models for kids anyway. My favorite superhero growing up was the Hulk. I mean, he's green, I'm black. It's close enough. You know, this guy's my hero. Did you ever see his TV show? Yeah, same dilemma every week. You just don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me if I was angry. You remember what happened after that? They piss him off. They would beat his ass like an animal dog. Then he'd get mad and turn into a monster and beat them up and keep on walking like nothing happened. I mean, what kind of role model's gonna fight that much? You know, after 5 episodes, I was like, hey man, maybe it's you.
So he's got a sort of a longer routine, but he said, you know, there's these personality tests where they ask you what superheroes' powers you would like, and they have Superman, Green Lantern, and Aquaman. And he's like, who would pick Aquaman's powers? Does anybody really want to spend all their time underwater talking to fish? What would that conversation go like? And he also said that he saw superheroes as kind of racist because he said you would never see Batman wasting his time protecting a poor neighborhood, you know. So what he was zeroing in on were these political reasons where he felt like he was not the target audience of superhero stories, right? Like, these aren't for me. They don't look like me. They don't protect me. I have to do this reach where it's the Hulk, and the Hulk's problematic. And they're too violent. They solve all... Even Wonder Woman, the pacifist, still punches people. So is she a pacifist? You know, that's what I said. That's what my wife says to me. I'll say, Wonder Woman's a pacifist. She's like, after she's done beating the shit out of everybody. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's a good point. Now, that's where the sort of the idea of the political content of comic books comes in. And let me see if I want to recover my little PowerPoint here. Is this it? No. That is it. Okay, good. Let's try that. Aha! Okay. How do superheroes vote? That Vote Loki comic book came out in 2016. It was the commentary by the writers about that particular election. In the 80s, in the comic book, Superman was written as a card-carrying Reagan Republican, while in the movies, Christopher Reeve played him as critical of Reagan and interested in destroying all the nuclear weapons in the world to de-escalate the Cold War. I actually wrote a book trying to interpret political messages in superhero comics called War, Politics, and Superheroes. And the inspiration was a comic book conversation I overheard in a store between the store owner and a customer who's a fireman. And I want to read you this conversation. The comic book store customer: do you think Superman's Republican? The proprietor: no way, he's against the death penalty. He asked the UN to let him rid the world of nuclear weapons in Superman 4. He's married to a feminist reporter. His archenemy is Lex Luthor, a billionaire arms dealer and Wall Street executive modeled after Donald Trump. And his father was a major environmentalist on Krypton who nobody listened to when the planet blew up. The customer says, yeah, but he wears an American flag as a costume. He's a patriot who believes in truth, justice, and the American way. Democrats hate patriotism, hate the American flag, and they believe in the French way. The proprietor says, Democrats don't all hate America. Maybe some modern-day ones do, but other Democrats love America and criticize it a lot because they love it. And JFK and FDR Democrats certainly didn't hate America. At the very least, Superman's an FDR Democrat, if not a Jimmy Carter Democrat. He sure as hell isn't a Reagan Republican. The customer just looked very depressed. And then he's like, well, Captain America, at least, has to be a Republican. And the store owner's like, are you kidding me? He's a bigger pinko than Superman. And I was like, oh, I want to write a book about that. So I decided, so each chapter is how each superhero represents a different political philosophy. So I have the Punisher as this insane immigration officer and wounded Vietnam vet. You know, Wonder Woman as a bisexual, socialist, feminist. Spider-Man's interesting because one of his creators, Steve Ditko, was a far right-wing objectivist who believed in lifting yourself up by your bootstraps and evolving. And then there was Stan Lee, who was sort of a center-left hipster. And he believed that with great power comes great responsibility. So if you have powers, you should help the little person. So Spider-Man is always torn between wanting to go in for himself and be rich. Like his first instinct is to become a professional wrestler and become famous. That's the objectivist. I went to public school and they bullied me, so I hate regular people and I will not help them. I will become rich and I will show them my sports car. And then every time he gets selfish, something awful happens. And the ghost of Uncle Ben, who's definitely a Democrat, shows up and says, with great power comes great responsibility. And Spider-Man's like, oh, okay, I'll try to be more liberal. And that's sort of his whole conflict. He's very split personality, which is why when Iron Man and Captain America fought over whether or not to support the Patriot Act and the Civil War, do we support George W. Bush or do we support Michael Moore? Iron Man was George W. Bush, Captain America was Michael Moore. I love the Patriot Act, I hate the Patriot Act. Civil liberties, national security. Civil liberties. Spider-Man started off with national security. I'm scared. Iron Man. And then Iron Man started rounding people up and throwing them in prison without trial, and he killed Ant-Man. Spider-Man's like, yeah, I'm defecting, and he jumped to Captain America's side. And this happened when I was between political parties, and I really related to Spider-Man. And I was like, huh. I may do that. Thanks, Spider-Man. So he's really interesting politically because of this fight between his two creators. So I just like thinking about what these characters represent. What are some other examples of things they could represent? Comics have always been political. When Captain America punched Hitler, we actually weren't in World War II yet. It was drawn by a Jewish comic book artist named Jack Kirby, who was very upset because he'd been hearing rumors about the Holocaust. He wanted us to come in the war and fight the Nazis, and that was his push for it. But a lot of Americans wanted us to be on Hitler's side against Stalin, and so this was really controversial. And a German-American group went to the comic book company to beat up Jack Kirby, and he went outside, beat the crap out of the American Nazis, and went back up and continued drawing that comic. And sometime around late 90s, early 2000s, this was an AIDS awareness article that said anyone can get AIDS, and showing Superman with it. If he can get it, anyone can get it. If he can be this vulnerable, anyone can. That's a powerful message, and superheroes are uniquely positioned to be potent in these messages. 9/11 had a huge effect on superheroes. Have you noticed that a lot of the Marvel movies have a very like 9/11, War on Terror, 24 kind of feel, especially all the emphasis on S.H.I.E.L.D.? A lot of them are dark colors. The Iron Man movie in particular is set in the Middle East. Marvel Comics was based in Manhattan, and so there's a Spider-Man issue where Spider-Man apologizes to the New Yorkers that he was not there in real life to prevent the destruction of the World Trade Center. Meanwhile, Carlos Latuf, who's an international activist artist, was offended that George W. Bush used the goodwill generated worldwide by the 9/11 attacks to invade Iraq. And so he used this comic strip to say that actually George W. Bush is sort of the new Hitler, and Captain Iraq should come and kick him in the same way that Captain America punched people. And so sometimes we're the bad guys in other countries' comic books and superhero stories. For example, Japan sees the United States as Godzilla. That film came out about 10 years after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Godzilla is this giant dragon who's radioactive, who's unstoppable militarily, who just wrecks Tokyo the same way Hiroshima and Nagasaki was wrecked. That is what it is like to fight America on the battlefield, this unstoppable nuclear force. Great Britain in the 80s thought that American culture was getting way too pro-police, pro-military, pro-prison, pro-gun. And so the British thought that we were becoming a society of vigilante gun nuts with no sense of humor who would just throw people in jail for life for shoplifting. And so they created Judge Dredd to make fun of us. And what's funny is sometimes when Americans read Judge Dredd comics or see the movies, they go, I love him, and they completely miss that he's a condemnation. But some American comics sort of agree with this satire. For example, the evil Captain America, the far right-wing Captain America U.S. agent, is Americans saying, yes, Britain, we see you and we agree. But what are the classic supervillain types? Because they represent certain values too. Obviously the Nazis, the Red Skull, fought Captain America. He was the stand-in for Hitler. In the 60s, Black Widow was a communist, and she was the main villain for Daredevil and Spider-Man. And then as tensions eased between the United States and Russia, they decided to make Black Widow a hero, and she started dating Daredevil. She joined S.H.I.E.L.D., and so she was rehabilitated. But she started out the classic Russian femme fatale, villain. Family conflicts. I mention this all the time because I'm emotionally scarred. My brother describes himself as Loki and me as Thor, and this is the only way I get to be Chris Hemsworth. But he says, as the older brother, I suck up all the oxygen. I'm too loud, I'm too showy. He just wishes I would shut up. And he relates to Loki. So for him, Loki's a good guy. But there's something very appealing, as hard to relate to as the gods are. We can relate to family conflict. And so on that level, we can really like the Thor story. Also, just Loki's this really charismatic, really smart, really funny guy. But my favorite take on him from the comic is, his kind of lying is, everything he says is true, but without love behind it. And the loss of the good intention makes him the biggest liar of all. And I was like, ooh, that's very clever. And then, of course, we have eco-terrorist Thanos, who wants to solve the environmental crisis by killing half the population of the Earth. And again, there are people who frighten me by saying things like, that's a great idea. We should also have a purge. And I think the moral of this film and The Purge is that it's not a good idea, but, This is where sometimes satires frighten me, because they seem to have the opposite effect they're intending to. What kind of evil does the Joker represent? I want your opinion on this. Do you have a strong feeling about the Joker? What you got?
He's a psychopath. He's like literally just insane.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything for any reason other than to mess with Batman.
Right. The first Joker comic I wrote is called The Killing Joke, and he was very much evoking the Charles Manson murders, a home invasion guy who kills innocent people for no reason. That's when he cripples Batgirl. So he represented the real-life evil of Charles Manson. In The Dark Knight, they totally made him like Hannibal Lecter, this very philosophical, satirical figure who makes fun of America, and he says a bunch of things that the audience would agree with while doing horrible things. So he can represent, he can be a gangster as he was in the 1989 movie. He can be a terrorist as he was in The Dark Knight. He can be an angry incel as he was in Joker. Also an insane artist or a failed comedian. A lord of chaos, which makes him a little more supernatural. Or he'll say something like, well, Batman has put so much order on Gotham City. It's a yin-yang thing. We need me to be chaos. Or he's an immortal evil like Pennywise. They actually had a story like that called Endgame. He's been all those. I don't know what my favorite is. I just know that when he's drawn to look like that, I love it. He's really cool in the comic books. Mark Hamill and the animated series, The movie ones with live actors are good, but none of them are quite like the comic book to me. What other kind of bad guys are there? Scary feminists be out of control. Women get superpowers, they will use it to break things because they're very emotional. I don't know that I would argue that women are the more emotional gender, but that's certainly the point that Dark Phoenix and the Scarlet Witch make. Then there are obviously the villains and the anti-heroes who express liberal opinions that the writers share. Magneto says this outrageous thing that LGBTQ people are people too. Machete, an outrageous sentiment that immigrants are people too. Are they villains, or are they anti-heroes, or are they just heroes? And then, of course, when you get really down to earth, businessmen stink. From the 1960s to 2000, we see different images of the out-of-control capitalist who's got no morality, that will just crush anyone to make a buck. The Penguin is the businessman villain that Batman fights. You see the sign there, only rich people and friends admitted. He runs for mayor of Gotham City in an episode of the series and in Batman Returns. And Batman outs him as being an enemy of the people who poses as a friend of the people. He's just interested in enriching himself. The Kingpin, he started out in the 60s as this sort of classic gangster figure. But in the 80s, they reinvented him to be a real-life 80s New York businessman who is secretly the world's biggest criminal. And he later went on to run for mayor of New York and wins. And Daredevil can't believe anyone would vote for this guy because he's so obviously corrupt. Superman, Lex Luthor, is another businessman villain who started out an evil scientist. But in the 80s, they decided to make him a little bit like a real-world businessman. And so he runs all the businesses in Metropolis, and he is beloved because he's sexy and he's rich, and everybody wants to be like him, and he pretends he's for the people. And Superman can't believe it when, in a comic book that came out in 2000, the people of America voted and made Lex Luthor president of the United States. What's interesting is, in the 80s, comic books made direct connections between that businessman, the Kingpin, and that businessman, Lex Luthor, and they decided that there was a New York businessman who they both were kind of a bit like. And so in that way, comic books can be a little prophetic. And so if you read Superman or Daredevil, their arch enemies are that fellow in disguise. That's edgy, isn't it? Come on. Why do you got to get political? Ditch politics and be like Call of Duty. That is not political at all. Just kidding. One of the things that keeps coming up is diverse comic books, political correctness run amok. I would argue no. They're actually marketing because superheroes are a business. And I want to tell you the story of how diversity really arrived in comic books. There was a comic book, came out in the 60s, called the X-Men. The X-Men at the time were a bunch of white people, and they were all very bland personality-wise. Their powers weren't very interesting. Beast is an acrobat. Cyclops has this ray beam. Iceman's cold. Angel flies. Jean's a telepath. They were really boring, and nobody bought the comic. And it kind of failed. It just petered out. And in the 70s, Marvel's like, can we fix the X-Men? Like, they've been around, but nobody buys their comic. How do we trick people into buying X-Men? And they're like, let's make a new team. I know each member of the team will be a member of a different ethnicity or race, and that way we can sell the comic to all these countries worldwide. So if we make Storm African, maybe we can sell our comics in Africa. And if we make Colossus Russian, maybe we can sell our comics in Russia. It was a marketing initiative. And that's how they came up with Canadian Wolverine, Russian Colossus, German Nightcrawler, African Storm, and they decided to keep that white fellow, Cyclops, just for fun. Oh yeah, and there's a Native American character, but they killed him right away, which, naturally. It's marketing, and it became Marvel's biggest hit because that was a brilliant idea. But of course, if you actually hire somebody who cares about diversity to write the comic, then this decision that was made purely for marketing reasons can result in a pretty cool story that in real life people can grow up reading and kind of go, that's me, finally, I made it onto the X-Men. And so the X-Men has more team members than any other super team. Avengers have a lot of people, Justice League have a lot of people. X-Men, there's so many mutants. There's a mutant for like everything. And the Italian X-Man is a homophobic mafia guy. But, you know, what can you do? But I still feel like there these great victories, like Ms. Marvel comes out, great character, great comic book, great victory for diversity, and people were mad just because she exists. But where's the downside? It's a great comic, she's a great character. What's the problem? And so on some level, I've never really related to modern day fans of anything, modern day music fans, modern day movie fans, modern day video game fans. Is it me, or do people hate their own hobbies these days? Like, why? Why is everybody so angry? Every time a movie's announced, I'm like, oh, they're doing that? Awesome. Everybody on the internet, I don't get it. So my attitude is, you can get some small sense of joy out of life while it lasts. Enjoy your own hobbies or get a new one if it bothers you so much. My brother has been watching every new episode of Doctor Who, and he hates every new episode. He's like, this is not what it was like in the 60s. And I'm like, frickin' get a new TV show if you're that upset. He's been doing this since 2005. I'm like, that's a lot of wasted years, man. Like, and he gets mad at me because I like it. I'm like, and he's the real fan because he hates it all. And I'm the fake fan because I like it all. I don't know. He's low-key, I don't get it. So, why do I still like superheroes? Well, because they're depressing political commentaries. Because they're escapist action-adventure. I like the repetitive familiarity, the same crap over and over and over. Every Marvel movie's the same. Let's us different, and people hate it. I see myself in them. They're wish fulfillment fantasies, like, you know, in the comic books, like President Luthor is impeached and goes to jail. If there's a love story and there's a soap opera, I love it when Peter Parker asks Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane to the prom at the same time, and he has to like try to take both. You know, that's awesome. I still have a crush on Kitty Pryde. All of this, yes, all that. But my latest love, and this is where I get joy out of things, there is a board game, Marvel United. It's here. All these superheroes get their own little figure. You buy your favorite superheroes. You could play any of them. This is the Black Panther board game. They've got an Infinity Gauntlet one, a Civil War one, all the major storylines. You can fight Dark Phoenix, and you get your locations. You fight for control of Shuri's lab or the throne room of Wakanda. And here's miniature Shuri Black Panther, you know, and you get to play them. Here is Killmonger's villain banner. And if you're not quiet on the battlefield, you might accidentally wake up the dragon Fin Fang Foom. Or the Chaos Demon Deadpool may show up and break all the rules of reality and start making things strange. And in one game, you can get your own Infinity Gauntlet, and you could play a 6-game campaign, and you get each of the gems, and you can kind of put them on the Infinity Gauntlet as you play the game. Now, when I found out this game existed, I was like, okay, this could get expensive. I got to be careful. I'm only going to buy Spider-Man, Nightcrawler, Kitty Pryde. I bought that many figures. So let me see. Who do I got? Captain America, Hulk, Iron Man, Black Widow, Captain Marvel, Taskmaster, Red Skull, Nick Fury, Hawkeye, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, Shang-Chi, Blade, Ant-Man, Wasp, Jessica Jones, She-Hulk, Ghost Rider, Howard the Duck, Drax, Mantis, Okoye, Falcon, Scarlet Witch, Daredevil, Squirrel Girl, Doctor Strange, Punisher, Corvus Glaive. Well, he came, I don't really care about him, but he came with the kit. Bullseye, MODOK, Kingpin, Baron Zemo. Anyway, we owe money in taxes, and I maxed out my credit card, and my wife wants to kill me. But I enjoy my hobbies. So, which action figures would you buy if you want to try out the board game? Let's say you don't know. He's like, oh, who should I buy? Which superhero am I? One little thing to do to kind of round out the talk is, have you heard of the Myers-Briggs Personality Type Index? There are superheroes online labeled the different personality type indexes. You take the test, and then you find out who you are. And it's kind of fun. So there's the extreme ends of the personalities. There's the dreamer mediator is one extreme, and the other extreme is a sort of commander, businessman, tyrant, right? Two opposites. And in between, there's all these different types. The sort of the STEM type, the logical type, the, you know, the intuitive type. And so I am INFP, the idealist. I'm an extreme personality type, labeled as unemployable, actually. But usually, they said good jobs for INFPs are priest, teacher, mystic, stand-up comedian. I have no idea why I got this designation when I took the test. But you can find out which one you are by taking the test. There's a website called 16 Personalities. You take the test, and then you match it. So this is me, INFP, dreamer and mediator. I am Luna Lovegood, Fluttershy, Mantis, Uncle Iroh, and Peter Malark. And naturally, I have action figures in my office of Uncle Iroh and Fluttershy to let my students know who they're talking to. I'm trying to put people at ease, especially when they owe me homework. You know, I don't want them to be scared. So what's yours? Take the test, 16personalities.com, check your match, and have some fun with it. But that's sort of the message. Whatever your hobby may be, it might not be superheroes. Maybe you should have outgrown it. But while you're having it, please enjoy it. Life's sad. Have some fun. So, just out of curiosity, do any of you already know which superhero you are? And now we can sort of open it up. Nightwing is awesome, isn't he? And he's one of the only superheroes who grows up. He was the original Robin, and you get to watch him grow up. He's with Batman, then he joins the Teen Titans, and he leads them. And then he's Nightwing, and he's really funny, and he makes fun of Batman and calls him Old Man. What do you like about him?
I like how not only is he a hero, but he's mentally stable.
He's not, yeah.
He's not a crazy man. He can keep a relationship while also protecting the city.
Who do you like him to date?
Starfire.
Yeah. Okay, just checking. I wouldn't have minded if you said Batgirl, but I think Starfire, yeah. Anybody else? What you got?
I don't know too much about them, but I know my 16 personalities type, and of the like 10, I chose Supergirl, I guess.
Now, here's the funny thing, there's different versions of Supergirl. Like there's one where she's a bit dark phoenixy and out of control. But my favorite is, there's a Supergirl who's alcoholic because she actually knew what Krypton was like when it blew up, and she misses everybody, whereas Superman was a baby. So like Superman's really optimistic, and she's like got her beer, and she's like, I'm glad you're optimistic. And I'm like, ooh, I like her. And that's the one that's going to get her own movie in a year or two, actually. And her movie's going to have the same plot as True Grit. It's good. It's based on a comic called Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. If you're going to read about that Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Anybody else get a good one? And if you don't want to do that, do you have any other kind of questions or observations? Or do you like, wait, I disagreed with about 90% of what you said, which is totally cool. Or, oh, did you want to? Yeah.
You read the new Ultimate Spider-Man run?
The brand new one? I spent so much money on that, I didn't have the money to get it, but it looks really cool. Like they're doing interesting stuff with it. Like he's married to Mary Jane, right? See, I like that because about 20 years ago, they annulled his marriage by Satan, and I was very attached to him being married to Mary Jane. Most hated comic story of all time, and yet they adapted it into the last Spider-Man movie with the memory wipe. It was weird. So what's the new one like?
Well, it's in the Ultimate Universe. He actually gets to have a family, gets to have a life. He didn't become Spider-Man until he's like 35.
So you actually like well-adjusted kind of regular, yeah, I agree. Because in the 80s, oh, I know. There was a period of time like in the 90s where every superhero was kind of evil and just killed people. Like DC made fun of it. When Batman's back was broken by Bane, they replaced him with an insane guy named Azrael. And you weren't supposed to like Azrael, and you were supposed to be happy when Batman's back got better, and he took the mantle back. Wonder Woman was fired and replaced by this more radical woman named Artemis. And you're not supposed to like Artemis. You're supposed to want Diana back. In Marvel, they're like, oh, Spider-Man, he doesn't kill people. You know who's cool in Spider-Man? Venom, Deadpool. And everybody's like, yeah, they kill people. They're better. And as a Spider-Man fan, I was like, come on, man. I like Spider-Man better. You know, so I have this attitude problem about Venom and Deadpool. But for the reason, like liking a kind of well-adjusted person, because when you're a teenager, you want to look at somebody who's successful and happy to be like that. I mean, if I really related too much to the Punisher, I don't know what I would have grown up to be like. That might have been bad. So I think I'm glad I shifted to Wonder Woman. What you got?
that everybody gets upset a year in advance about who's going to play, what character's going to play a certain superhero. That reminds me of just how unpopular many of our political candidates are, especially presidential candidates.
Right.
Like each election, in the last 3 elections, it seems like these are the 2 disliked candidates of all time. What do you think it is about our culture that makes us so dissatisfied with not just presidential candidates, but superheroes? And is this unique to the United States? Or is this something that across cultures?
There's always been a part of me, and I used to think maybe I haven't suffered enough, but I kind of have had bad times in my life. But I don't like when people are certain about things. Things are like this now, they will always be like this. Or this will definitely happen. Or I'm like, yeah, you sure? Like, and especially if it's negative. Like, no matter what we do, we're screwed. And I'm like, well, fine, but why don't you just kill yourself at that point? Like, I kind of feel like you got to have some hope, some sense of humor. So I've always been sort of out of step with the defeatist, humorless aspect of American culture, where the only solution is to have the biggest gun and to solve every problem with a flamethrower. And I occasionally like the political candidates, so like that's also a problem. I mean, I suppose all of them to one degree or another are guilty of endorsing murder, but some of them have their points, you know. I think there's this fear, like you've got this ticking time bomb of climate change, people growing up post 9/11. There's this darkness hanging over things that makes even new generations hard to hope. But one of the things I like about G. Willow Wilson, who created Ms. Marvel, is she said there's a Muslim idea that even if it's the last day on earth you plant the seed, you have some hope for the future, even if it seems impossible. And that's the value system she gave to Ms. Marvel. And Ms. Marvel sort of has that. And it's even in the comic. It may be too late for climate change. We may never be in a world that isn't always at war. Nevertheless, Ms. Marvel is going to enjoy her family, do good, build community, be resistance. And it doesn't matter if she's going to lose. It matters how she lives. And I really like that. And I wish people would talk about that on the internet instead of focusing on like, oh, she's got this flag on her. Like, forget that. What does she represent, and does it inspire you? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite Batman actor?
You always like the one you grow up with. So I grew up with Adam West, who's the fun one. And honestly, when I was in 5th grade, the Dark Knight comic book came out. And it was a rated R comic where he was kind of evil. And it scared the crap out of me. And I was like, what happened to DC Comics? They should call it Depressing Comics. So I never really got over Batman going dark. But what's funny is, Christian Bale was exactly where I wanted him in the first movie, and then he got more evil. I'm like, no, the new guy, Edward Cullen. Robert Pattinson. He'd be so mad at me right now. But yeah, Robert Pattinson. He starts out actually too bleak for me and gets cuddlier. And I'm like, aha! So I love the new one. It's the most accurate Catwoman. Yeah. So I kind of really love the Batman. Oh, the Riddler's in it. I've been waiting for an awesome Riddler movie. And it's so topical. I love that movie. So I don't have to, yeah. But I actually kind of I even like George Clooney. That's a silly, fun movie with Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. Somebody else? Yeah.
My friend said that Bruce Wayne would be Republican and Batman would be a Democrat. What do you think?
Oh, that's smart.
Batman
If you watch Batman the Animated Series, he's always stopping villains who have liberal opinions who kill conservatives. And he'd be like, you can't do that. You got to vote against them. Or you got to raise money for MoveOn.org. And I will do that as Bruce Wayne. So Poison Ivy's mad that they're cutting down forests, so she kills people that cut down forests. Batman shows up, stops her, and then he donates a lot of money to the Let's Save the Forest Fund as Bruce Wayne. He kind of is a more effective superhero as Bruce Wayne, if he actually was a nice capitalist. Some people say he's a libertarian. I think of him as a feudal lord. He seems like a Jane Austen character. He's got a castle, he's got a British butler, And he's like, Gotham City's mine. I take good care of it. He's like Mr. Darcy. And he's like, I can't kill the Joker. He's my serf, you know. And it's weird because he's in America, but he acts like a British guy. And so that's my favorite way of looking at him. I certainly don't like when he's just evil Clint Eastwood. Like, rah, I'm going to kill this guy with my tank. And no. So, yeah, but there's many versions. And I think the Adam West Batman is a Democrat and Bruce Wayne's a Democrat. And possibly gay. It's cool. It's interesting. Any other? Well, I guess thank you for being patient with me. My wife is really tired of how much I talk about this crap. If she ever hears the word Wolverine again, she'll divorce me. So thank you for listening. Obviously, I care about this stuff. I also did this edited book, Working Class Comic Book Heroes, and I like to be radical as I write my scholarship. So just, Dave Chappelle said, who would pick Aquaman? I like fish. I would pick Aquaman. So thank you all. I really appreciate the audience, and I hope you all have a cool day and that you get some joy out of your hobbies.
Thank you.
Very cool.